Here's a question you may have pondered. What am I going to do all day in retirement? That's the question financial planning doesn't answer. You've done the financial planning for money. You know your numbers. But have you done the planning for meaning? What will you actually do with 30 years of unstructured time that feels worth getting out of bed for? Today, let's talk about how to answer that question. Most people approach retirement with a leisure model in mind. They've been working for 30, 40 years, often in roles that exhausted them. And retirement sounds like finally being free from obligation. Free to travel, to read, to play golf, and do whatever they want, whenever they want. And for the first few months, that freedom feels exactly as good as they imagined. Sleeping late, no more commute, no more meetings or deadlines, or politics. It's genuinely liberating. But somewhere around month 3 or 4, something shifts. The relief of not working fades, and what replaces it is a kind of restlessness that's difficult to name. You've caught up on sleep, you've traveled to the places you'd been deferring, you've read the books that were piling up, you've reorganized the garage. And now what? The problem isn't that leisure isn't enjoyable. It's that pure leisure, sustained over years rather than weeks, doesn't provide what humans need to feel alive. It doesn't provide the structure that organized your days when you were working. It doesn't provide the sense of contribution that came from solving problems that mattered to someone beyond yourself. And it doesn't provide the creative challenge that kept your mind engaged and growing. Leisure is rest, and rest is essential. But a life of only rest becomes a different kind of exhaustion. The exhaustion of days that blur together without distinction, of time passing without anything to mark its significance. What works better is to find something that engages you the way work engaged you, but on your own terms. Something that challenges you intellectually or creatively without the politics and pressure that made you want to leave in the first place. This is what I call a purpose project. It's exactly what it sounds like. A project, not a job, that gives life purpose and meaning. And both of those words are important here. First, it is a project, not a career, not a full-time commitment, not something anyone is locked into forever. A project has a defined scope and often a natural completion point. You can start one, finish it, and start another. You can have multiple purpose projects happening simultaneously. You can experiment with something for 6 months, and if it doesn't resonate, let it go and try something else. The project structure is psychologically crucial because it removes the weight of lifelong commitment. The question becomes, what do I want to build or explore during this chapter? Not forever, just for now. That is far less intimidating and far more aligned with how retirement actually works, as a time for exploration and evolution rather than locking into a single new identity. Second, it has purpose. Having a purpose project isn't just killing time or staying busy. It's work that matters, that aligns with your values, that uses skills worth developing, and that contributes something worth contributing. Purpose is what distinguishes a purpose project from simply having hobbies. Hobbies are great. I am not dismissing them, but hobbies are often passive consumption or low-stakes recreation. Reading is a hobby, gardening is a hobby, traveling is a hobby. A purpose project is different. It involves active creation rather than passive consumption. It involves building something, teaching something, solving something, or making something that didn't exist before. It engages at a deeper level because there's something at stake, not in a stressful way, but in a way that makes what someone is doing feel like it actually matters. And there can be an added level of benefit. Many purpose projects can also generate income. Not all of them need to, but the ones that do, what I call profitable purpose projects, solve two problems simultaneously. They provide both meaning and money, purpose and financial contribution. That combination changes everything psychologically. Instead of just spending down savings while trying to stay busy, there's active building of something that supports life financially while also providing a reason to be deeply engaged. The project structure is psychologically crucial because it removes the weight of lifelong commitment. This isn't, what am I going to be for the rest of my life? This is, what am I going to build or explore or create for the next period of time? Let me give you some concrete examples of what purpose projects look like in practice, because this concept is easier to understand through specifics than through abstraction. A former teacher I know spent her career in public schools, retired at 62, and initially thought she'd just enjoy not working. But within months, she realized she missed the intellectual engagement of teaching. So she started a purpose project. She began tutoring high school students in math and science, working with 8 or so students at a time, setting her own schedule, charging rates that made it financially viable, while keeping it accessible to families who needed help. That's a profitable purpose project. It uses her expertise, gives her the satisfaction of helping students succeed, and provides structure to her weeks, and generates income that supplements her retirement savings. And she can scale it up or down depending on her energy and interest. A civil engineer who'd spent 40 years in infrastructure consulting retired and started a different kind of purpose project, volunteering with Habitat for Humanity, using his technical expertise to help design affordable housing projects. This one doesn't generate income, but it gives him profound satisfaction because he's applying his skills to something he deeply cares about, making housing accessible to people who need it. That's a pure purpose project. All meaning, no money. And for him, that's exactly what he needed because his financial position was secure and what he wanted was to contribute. A woman who'd worked in corporate marketing spent the first year of retirement traveling, which she'd earned and enjoyed, but she found herself missing the creative challenge of building campaigns and telling stories. So she launched a purpose project, freelance marketing consulting for small nonprofits, working about 15 hours a week, helping organizations she believed in reach their audiences more effectively. That's another profitable purpose project. She's using skills she spent decades developing. She's working with organizations whose missions she values. She's generating income that gives her financial flexibility. And she's doing it on her own timeline without the corporate politics that had exhausted her. What all three of these have in common is that they're substantial enough to matter, flexible enough to adjust as life changes, and aligned with what each person values and wants to contribute. There's research I find particularly compelling that speaks to why purpose projects matter so much in retirement. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi is a psychologist who studied the notion of flow, which is the heightened state of focus and immersion that happens when a person is fully engaged in something meaningful and enjoyable. This psychologist found that people are happiest not when they're relaxing or consuming, but when they're engaged in challenging activities that match their skill level, what he called being in a state of flow. And flow requires specific conditions, clear goals, immediate feedback, a balance between challenge and ability, and complete absorption in what you're doing. For all its flaws, work often provided those conditions. You had projects with defined outcomes. You got feedback on whether what you were doing was working. The difficulty was calibrated to your growing expertise. You could lose yourself in solving complex problems. Leisure rarely provides these conditions. Watching television doesn't create flow, neither does passive travel or recreational shopping, or most of what we think of as relaxing. But purpose projects can create flow. If they're designed well, they'll provide exactly the conditions that Csikszentmihalyi identified. Clear objectives, feedback loops, appropriate challenge levels, and deep engagement. That's why people with purpose projects in retirement consistently report higher satisfaction than people who retire to pure leisure. It's not that they're working more, it's that they're engaged in activities that create the psychological state where humans actually thrive. And here's what surprised me in my own experience. Having a profitable purpose project, one that generates even modest income, provides psychological benefits that go beyond the financial value. When I started this YouTube channel as my purpose project, I knew that it had the potential to generate income, and that's helpful, certainly, but what matters much more is the sense that I'm building something of value, that people find, hopefully, what I'm creating useful enough to support it, that I'm contributing rather than consuming. That feeling of contribution is enormously stabilizing psychologically. It's the difference between feeling like you're slowly using up resources while trying to fill time versus feeling like you're actively creating value and being compensated for it in joy as well as financial remuneration. Even if you don't need the money, even if you're completely financially secure, there's something profoundly satisfying about knowing that what you're doing has enough value that people might be willing to pay for it. So how do you actually identify what your purpose project should be? I know that this can feel overwhelming, especially if you've been defined by your professional role or your work role for decades, and now you're trying to figure out what comes next. Let me offer a framework that's helped both me and people I've worked with think through this more clearly. Start by asking yourself 3 questions and be honest in your answers, not aspirational, not what you think you should say, but what is actually true. Question number 1, what skills or knowledge do I have that I genuinely enjoyed using in my career? Not all of them. You don't need to bring forward into retirement everything that you did, but what parts of your work actually energized you rather than depleted you? What problems did you love solving? What capabilities do you have that felt effortless because they are aligned with how you naturally think? For me, it was connecting ideas, translating complex concepts into accessible language, and helping people see patterns they hadn't noticed before. Those skills showed up in my legal practice and in the running of my art gallery, and now in creating content about retirement design. Here's question number 2. What would I do even if no one paid me for it? This question probes intrinsic motivation. What topics fascinate you enough that you'd explore them purely for your own satisfaction? What would you create or build or learn just because the process itself is rewarding? This doesn't mean your purpose project can't generate income, but starting with what you do anyway ensures that you're building something sustainable, not just chasing money. Question number 3. What contribution do I want to make that feels aligned with my values? Who do you want to help? What problems do you care about solving? What would you want to be able to say you did with this next chapter of your life that would make you feel proud of how you spent your time? Your answers to these 3 questions point toward your purpose project. It's at the intersection of what skills you enjoy using, what you do anyway, and what kind of contribution matters to you. From there, you can start small. You don't need to launch something fully formed. Pick one possibility and commit to exploring it seriously for 90 days, let's say. Build something, create something, teach something. See if it creates the engagement and satisfaction that you're looking for. If it does, keep going and consider how to make it profitable if that matters to you. If it doesn't resonate, let it go and try something else. The beauty of purpose projects is that they're experiments, not permanent commitments. Now, not every purpose project needs to generate income. I want to be clear about that. If you're financially secure and what you want is pure contribution without monetary compensation, that's entirely valid. Volunteering, mentoring, creating art purely for the sake of making it, those are all legitimate purpose projects. But if you're interested in creating a profitable purpose project, one that generates income while providing meaning, there are some things worth understanding about how to approach that. The key is not to start with, what can I sell? But rather, what value can I create that people would naturally want to pay for? That's a subtle but very important distinction. If you start with what you can monetize, you'll likely end up doing something transactional that doesn't actually engage you. But if you start with creating genuine value, solving real problems, teaching something people want to learn, building something people actually need, the monetization often becomes obvious. For instance, if you're a former engineer who helps people understand how to make their homes more energy efficient, that has clear value. People need that expertise. You could offer consulting services, teach workshops, create guides or courses. The income follows from the value that you're creating. If you're someone who's developed deep expertise in a specific area over decades, whether that's finance, healthcare, education, technology, whatever, there are people who need what you know. The question is how to package that expertise in a way that's accessible to them and sustainable for you. This is where the project structure matters. You're not going back to a full-time job. You're building something that works for your life now. Flexible hours, your own terms, focused on what you find most satisfying about using your skills. Let me bring this back to where we started. If you're approaching retirement and you're asking, what am I going to do all day? That's not a trivial question. It's actually the most important question you'll answer beyond the financial calculations. Because retirement isn't really about having enough money to stop working. It's about having enough purpose to keep living fully, to keep growing, to keep contributing in ways that make you feel like your life still matters. A purpose project gives you that. It gives you structure without rigidity, contribution without obligation, challenge without the parts of work that were draining, and often income without giving up your freedom. You don't need to figure this out all at once. You don't need to have it perfect before you start. You just need to begin exploring what form your purpose project might take. If you want a more structured way to think through this, not just the purpose piece, but all three pillars of retirement design, the financial piece, the purpose piece, as well as leisure, I've created a retirement readiness scorecard that walks you through 27 questions to help you see where you have a firm foundation and where you might need to focus more attention. It takes about 10 minutes to complete and it's free. And when you're done, you'll have a clear picture of how prepared you actually are for this transition. The link is in the description. Just enter your email and I'll send it to you right away. Your life in retirement deserves more than leisure. It deserves meaning. And your purpose project is how you create that. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.